How can it be that it's 6 o'clock on a Thursday again? It's like magic, isn't it? Next thing you know, it'll be Christmas. Hello, I'm Russ Kane, and this is the ABC of CBD. I don't know where the time goes. It's amazing, isn't it? I'm 100% live. Can't wait for all your comments and everything from all over the world. It's great. We had somebody commenting on my own particular show. They're from Texas this week and saying how much they love the show. They came on and said it. Anyway, they don't love the show because of me. They love it because of the Hunk of Hemp, the Count of Canabinoids, the Maharaja of Marijuana. He is Ollie Mammon.
The last one's funny. I like the last one. I do like that. What's up, Russ? Can't believe it's the end of January already. Mental.
Okay. Well, that is just so blooming frightening.
It's really weird.
That is really, really freaking me out. Anyway,
8.5% of the year gone. Nice.
Stop it. Let's say hello to our lovely, lovely sponsors and then crack on with it's going to be a belter of a show number 62. But before that,
I'm sure you've heard before that good quality CBD needs to be really, really expensive. This is the new view of CBD, a product created by users for users, a product at an affordable price, available everywhere at any time at the simple click of a button. Just CBD and MCT oil. No additives, no preservatives, and no flavor enhancers. It's a simple subscription-based service. The cleanest possible CBD delivered to your door for the lowest possible price. Your product, your rights for the lowest possible price.
Ta-da! Same shirt.
Tell me something.
Going on auction.
You've changed the color of your earphones. They've gone from
I've left the red. I've gone for something a little bit more Swedish and stylish in order to embrace our Brexit. So no, basically my old headphones, they are literally knackered. I mean, I was even getting the little buzz in them, so I decided to treat myself to a new pair. And hopefully the sound quality is just as good for me as it is for all of you.
Absolutely great. Let's go straight across to Stockholm, where he's doing a show live to 50,000 people. It's DJ Robert. This is outstanding. I think this guy's got the coolest name, right? His name is Robert Van Buren, and he sounds like a sort of Swedish DJ.
Yeah, because Van Buren is a Swedish DJ. Yeah, so Van Buren is one of the biggest DJs in the world. I don't know if this Van Buren is, but if he is, what's up, Rob? That's incredible.
No, Robert is a clockmaker.
That's also pretty cool.
I love things like that. And here we've got, hello, boys. Oliver, please give my sincere apologies to your mum.
Oh, no, she was upset. I spoke to her after the show was in it. She was in hysterics. She was absolutely in hysterics.
Oh,
she loved you. She thought it was great back.
Honestly, don't worry. That's extremely sweet. Chrissy Richards out there in Spain. Right, enough of me. Over to you, boy.
Just to say something quickly about clockmakers, someone who understands the intricacies of time down to the moment that they can help us keep it is always a little bit crazy. It's just to throw out there.
I'm obsessed. I don't wear jewelry at all, but my passion is, and I watch endless videos, is watches. And so, Robert, one day you and I will meet for a coffee, because I've never met Ollie, but one day you and I will meet for a coffee, maybe with the lovely Neil Long, and you can talk to me all about watches and clocks, because they fascinate. Why?
It's incredible. Also, when someone has the ability, they look at some clocks which were built like 150 years ago, and a machine in today's world couldn't build the cogs. I love stuff like that. I think that's pretty cool that you couldn't get a machine to build the cogs that a man made with his hands, probably by candlelight, 150, 200 years ago.
Can I digress for 2 seconds? I'm sorry.
Yeah, do your thing. 2 seconds.
Just for a second, literally. It's the difference between something which is a piece of art because it's handmade, and you can buy a cheap watch which will be more accurate, but it hasn't got what I call soul. Does that make any sense?
It's all about soul.
It doesn't have soul. Anyway, enough. Sorry.
I completely agree with you. Anyway, on today's show, today we're joined by a special guest. He's actually a colleague of mine by the name of Edward Martin. Now, after my analysis of the American market last week, I thought it would be logical to do a similar analysis of the current UK market. Now, my opinions from America were formed through my experiences visiting there over the last several years, as I've watched some areas flourish and others maintain the same anti-cannabis, anti-new era of normal mentality. My view of the UK market is a little bit too convoluted, as you've seen over the last 60 weeks. it's too intense. That's the honest truth. And also being a product focused dude, being product focused in my day-to-day activities, I don't get the interaction with shop owners.
How do you mean?
Heads of...
I got to jump in because people all over the world. And by the way, Chrissy Richards says my friend has a cuckoo clock. Every time we're on the phone, it goes cuckoo and blah blah blah. Drives her bonkers. What do you mean? Your view of the UK market is too intense?
So as we've seen, okay, I'm very opinionated. All right,
Yeah.
my view
passionate.
of my view of the UK market is very much based on my opinions and my interactions. So it's based on an emotional perspective, and it's based on this idealistic perspective, as opposed to being based on the reality. And reality is probably 10 times worse than I say it is. But I mean, I have this patient-focused approach where I really want patients to get what they get. They don't, and that's my general view of the market, is that it's unfulfilling, it's unnurturing, it's uncaring, and it's unthought through. That's my view. But then I can talk about that for hours and hours and hours, and that's why I bring on the guests who we've had over the last 62 weeks to basically share their stories of pain, to explain why this market in the UK is not flourishing in the way it potentially could, and in not enabling people to find their salvation in a plant, because it's just not enabling it. And I've got that view. And I don't really talk about the laws. I don't really talk about the hurdles which are put up. I just mainly talk about, rights in a certain, people deserve their right to not suffer. I'm not saying they deserve their right to grow. I'm not, because that gets very confusing and very complicated when you start getting into that debate and when you start getting into the politics. But my view is quite, intense. Do you know what I mean? And it's very much as a patient. It's on the ground, as opposed to my view from America last week was an overarching view of America. It wasn't a personal view. It was like, I'm looking at another country and I'm giving my opinion on another country. Like, I've lived in the UK for so long that my view of the UK market is based on me as an individual looking out, as opposed to me as an individual looking on.
Yeah, looking in. Really.
Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. One of the things I would say is if you put all the law aside and everything else we've discussed over 62 intense weeks, there is a moral imperative that people should not suffer.
And that's the main thing.
And I think that is the very heartbeat. I think that's the nucleus of the
We
whole
haven't really spoken
debate.
politically, especially me and you, Ross, as hosts of this show.
Well, I won't.
We've stayed clear. No, but even me, I've stayed clear of the politics, because the politics doesn't really, it sounds really mental. I don't really care about the politics. I don't care how patients get what they get, as long as they get it. Do you know what I mean? I don't care if it's a top-down control or if it's a bottom-up freedom. I really don't care. But either way, let me just get on with this introduction, and we'll bring on our guests. We can carry on this conversation. Okay. So, my view of the UK cannabis market is too intense and convoluted, and also being product focused in my day-to-day activities, I don't get the interaction with shop owners, heads of brands, or other innovators in this space. I don't have the time with them to really see what their opinions are, to be able to form a broader opinion. It's all me looking out. All right, partially due to the pandemic, but also due to my job role and my responsibility. They don't let me out the lab much, hence why I do all my filming from a lab. All right, there was a joke in there, but Ross, distracted me. I had to go back. Anyway, however, our guest today has had that interaction, the experience. He's had that interaction. He's had that experience. Has been on the front of the hurdle jumping, legal navigating, unsure, uncertain, unclear business side of the UK and European CBD market. So our guest is Edward Martin. Like I said, he's actually a colleague of mine. He works in sales. He's client-facing. He's law navigating, and he's in the trenches. And from where I stand, the market's all become extremely complicated, confusing, and very unnecessary. And there's a whole novel foods conversation which we've had over the course of several episodes over the last year. So we're going to touch on that again. Another reason why I've brought Edward as our guest is because he is American. And as we're about to see, and considering last week we had a Brit doing an analysis of the cannabis market in America, I thought it might be nice and it might be polite to grant a Yank the honor of dissecting.
Yeah, you were going so well until he called him a Yank.
Yeah, I don't have to. I actually wrote that in.
So
I thought
polite.
I wrote American and I changed it because I thought, you know what, I'm doing so well. I've got basically I thought I'll give him a chance to analyze us, because also he's grown up in America. He's going to come to the UK, and he's also got this overarching view of our society, of our culture, coming from a different culture. So the same way that we went, like when I went to America, I had this view from English, from an English point of view, through English eyes. He's got a view of England through American eyes, and even better yet, through Californian eyes. So I thought it could be quite an interesting conversation, because it's not really something we've done on the show so far, and I feel like it could be enlightening. So let's bring on our guest. Let's see if he
there he is.
Makes us happy.
Gentlemen, how's it going?
Very good.
It's okay. You see, he's already won everybody over. All he has to say is, "Gentlemen,
today?
how you doing?" That's it. We might as well go home.
Good to see you both.
Very, very handsome
Good
boy.
to see you both. Thank you for having me on. This is a wonderful.
Are you in the
wonderful
UK? Where are you?
He's in Japan.
I'm not in a Japanese dojo right now. I am in the UK. Just wanted to at least have a good background for you guys. But yeah, thank you for having me on.
He's filming for season 5 of Cobra Kai, right?
Yeah, it's either that or you're really busy.
Daniel LaRusso's in the back. He's going to pop out in a second.
No.
Teach him the
He's
wax
in
on,
a
wax
sushi
off.
bar.
It's plants, right? It's in the theme of what we're talking about today.
And in a minute that little train of sushi is going to keep going.
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
I'm not in a lab like Ollie.
Always in the lab.
He's not
never leave the lab. I've got my hammock in the corner.
Always in the lab, man.
Always in the lab. Literally, they call me Labs. That's what they call me now. Okay, and I've got a Labrador as well. So Ollie in his lab with his lab. It's like so many labs. How many labs to screw in the light bulb? So, Edward, how are you, my friend? Thank you so much for coming on the show.
The pleasure's
thank you so much for
side.
stepping into the dungeon. We really appreciate it. We're going to go easy on you. I told Russ to be nice. All right?
That's all good.
That's not good. But you've been told me to be.
You can give me the hard-hitting questions. That's all good. I'm here
to I don't have any heart. I don't have. Oh, hello. You've pulled. Look, it hasn't been a waste of time for you coming on, because look, you've already pulled. Wow, what a looker and lovely voice.
Yes, Edward.
He turns up
the
for
accent that
15
does
seconds
most of the work.
and we are toast. I don't like this guy. I'm telling you now. I'm not keen on him.
I love him. Anyway, so my first question. Always my first question on the show to every single guest. What was your first interaction with cannabis, and what was your first story of seeing cannabis as a medicine? What opened your eyes to this world?
So my background, born and raised in California. So that's kind of my introduction into cannabis. I'm very used to a mature cannabis market, born and raised in it. And it's always been around me, and it's always been a part of the culture. All the way from Northern California, you have the Emerald Triangle, Humboldt County, down to Southern California, which is where I'm from. I've kind of lived all over the West Coast. I think my story mirrors many others in terms of my introduction to cannabis and seeing its benefits, and that was through friends and family, right? You see anecdotal evidence from, people, friends of friends of friends. But when you see it help, your auntie going through chemo, or your mom and dad with their arthritis, there's no real certificate of analysis that you need to see after the fact. It's like, oh, okay, this stops, family members from being on a million different pharmaceutical pills or chemo treatment. So that was my introduction into it as a very young kid.
So you say as a young kid, I just want to kind of throw that out there. So like, how old were you? So I know that the cannabis market in California really started around 96. So let's say by the year 2000, it was already flourishing. Okay, it was already like, it was more common than it is here now. All right.
Sure.
At what age were you seeing let's say your elders consuming a product which might have been potentially demonized to you as a child?
I didn't really know what it was throughout most of my childhood, right? I didn't know what it was. And you only kind of hear about it when you're kind of coming of age a little bit, around those formative years, 10 to 12, right? And it's usually the older siblings of your friends who are 4 or 5 years older, who are in high school, are all smoking something different when you have a sleepover or when you're hanging out around your friends. But you're right with the timeline. California it was black market for a long time. And then around 95, 96, medical came in. And medical changed everything, right? And that was the, for lack of a better term, Trojan horse that ushered in the market, that kind of shone the spotlight on it. And medical was around for 15 to 20 years after 1996, and then it legalized. And we all know the story of that. Now there's about 37 different states that have some form of medical or recreational bills that have been passed. I think Mississippi, of all places, finally legalized as of yesterday.
Blimey.
Yeah,
What?
one of the in the middle of the Bible Belt in the south of all these places. So it's rippled out.
Edward, what do you think will be the last state in the US to finally give in and say, yeah, it's fine?
Nebraska.
It's not going to be coastal. It's going to be somewhere in the Midwest. And I
Yeah.
just don't know. Usually when there's a bill or when states override the federal law by saying, no, look, we're going to start passing our own state laws,
Yep.
the tipping point is somewhere between 36 and 40 states. When you've reached that buffer, then it's kind of like the tipping point where federal law gets passed imminently after the fact. So we're kind of in the middle of that right now.
I didn't
in
know
states.
that. I didn't realize that. I didn't realize it was a sort of equation thing, and it can get to that point, and they go, right, everybody, it's now we're rolling it out nationally as opposed
Sure.
to state by state. I had no idea. That's very interesting.
It's not to say that one leads to the other. It's just like a sociological thing. It's happened on other bills that have passed.
It's a hope, though, isn't it? It's a hope. It's not a guarantee that once 36 states are in, that federal government will come in and stamp it as legit, because it's not. Is it like they could if they wanted to? The federal government could theoretically still stamp it as illegal, even if 50 states have fully legalized it, right? Because the federal government operate in their own certain world. You know, they're like a league above the rest of us.
Exactly. There's federal law that kind of can override. And the only reason they haven't done
here's a suggestion, Edward. Oklahoma is traditionally last on principle.
Yeah, they might be the last ones. Yeah, just as a way to be kind of the last guy in the saloon, to have their guns.
Kind of giving the finger to Washington, really, in a sort of strange way. So it's not as straightforward as we don't want people taking this particular plant. There's also no, we got to show our muscle as a state that we're independent, I think. Yeah,
and it depends on who the bill writers or the governors are at the time. What's their opinions on the matter? Are they very conservative?
Someone in America tried to explain this to me. So in America, first of all, there comes a bill, and then there comes a law. So if the bill doesn't go through, then the law can't even be suggested to potentially go through. So there's so many. In the UK, we have laws. All right, there's nothing that comes before a law. You have the law, you change the law. All right, in America, they have something which comes before the law. It's almost like it's like just that prequel. Yeah, and it's a vote before the vote, right?
Yeah,
it's a bit mental. You have to vote for the right to potentially have the vote on something. So it's
and you've got to fight for the right to party. Don't forget.
No, fine. Let's go back in time to a simpler time. An American high school kid, Edward, in high school. Okay, so when you were in high school, did you think the market in cannabis-friendly America, did you think that the market that now exists in cannabis-friendly America and the rest of the world was going to be what it is? As in, could you see, like I know you saw your loved ones consuming cannabis, and you saw this opening up and this loosening of laws around cannabis. Did you think when you were in high school, 15, 16 years old, that, oh my God, the world in 15 years is going to be completely, it's going to be falling like dominoes and countries will be legalizing like every single week? Did you think that was going to happen?
Looking back, we honestly didn't know how legalization was going to happen. We always knew it was going to. The writing was on the wall, and especially living in California is a wonderful place. It does feel like an echo chamber sometimes, but with this particular topic, there was no real, I don't want to say downside, but we saw more detrimental effects from drinking. So the culture there was, of course, it's health and wellness. It's, people will jump on trends, but they'll also fast track new diets, new supplements, new beverages, drinks. It's a very experimental culture in the terms of trying out new, I guess, dietary supplements, food
It's like
supplements. The more opening.
every successful cult that's ever been started has started in California, right? You've got that dude. What's it
Probably.
called? What's it called? Manson? Yeah, is that his name? Like, I'm sure he was in
Yeah, I
California,
mean,
wasn't he?
yeah,
And
Charles Manson.
yeah,
Yeah,
Charles
that was
Manson. He
the
was in
whole
California, and then I'm sure
Summer
you had a few of the
'69. Yeah.
other ones who were all in California.
Sure. So that's like
Yeah,
the double-edged sword of it, right? You can
that's it.
influence people if you want to take it down that route
Pretty
very
cool.
easily. But so cannabis cultures, it's been incredibly popular. Kind of fast tracking, I'm in high school. Cannabis is part of the culture, but it's at parties, it's on the weekends, it's your older brother, right? Uh, we knew it was going to be legalized. We didn't know how, but I never thought it was going to, no pun intended, grow as fast as it did. From the Deliveroo apps, and Uber is now signed on to deliver cannabis in Southern California, to the
What?
dispensaries, to the,
Whoa, Edward, what? You can get no way.
That's super
yeah,
Deliver
cool.
weed. I have to call it deliver
yeah, it
weed.
just shows you how like state law can
That's
influence, and
extraordinary.
Uber's a
But bear
Silicon
in
Valley
mind that
company.
California is like the commercial capital of the world. I
No, I
mean,
get
like,
that. I get
like,
that.
like
Sure.
it's insane the way Californians spend money. It's just
Yeah.
mental. It's like a whole nother level of capitalism. It's just mad. It's absolutely mad.
I know it is, and also, of course, as you're saying, Edward, which is very interesting, especially I'm going to say on the West Coast. So I spent a lot of time there. It's they don't want to be behind the curve, do they?
No,
They want to
never.
be an early adopter and say, "Look at me, I'm driving a Tesla. Ooh, I'm great," or
Yeah,
whatever it might be.
exactly. You've got the tech industry in Silicon
Yeah.
Valley.
Mm.
You've got Humboldt County growing the weed, and you've got, LA, San Diego, and San Francisco, three of
And then, well, you've
the
got
US's
Hollywood.
largest
Don't
cities.
forget Hollywood. You've
Yeah, it's
got
the influential
basically,
cultural
yeah.
movie makers, TV show hub.
We spoke about this last week about how like as a UK population, as a world population, most of our education about America comes through the movies. Like most people have watched more American movies and more American TV than they have spent time in America. So no matter how much we want to believe that we're influenced by our journey, we're actually we're influenced by our visual experiences and our media consumption. And the fact of the matter is that's all come out of California. California owns the way we see America, which is pretty mental as well when you think about it. I mean, in terms of their ownership over things. Fine, so let's move forward in time a little bit. You went to college in Colorado, right?
Now, I went to Sonoma State in Northern California, and that's kind of in the heart of Wine Valley. So Napa Valley, Sonoma County, all those lovely vineyards that have kind of taken the French model and then replicated it in Northern California. And they've won some awards, some phenomenal awards. And I think there was a few movies that were made about, Napa Valley vineyards that had beat some famous, prestigious Bordeaux vineyards.
Sonoma really is magnificent.
It is. It's a lovely part of the
goodness
world.
Me, fabulous.
Yeah.
Anyway,
and did you see over your time? So the one thing is there was a lot of agricultural replacements. So a lot of I'm not saying vineyards became cannabis farms, but people who owned vineyards ended up owning cannabis farms, and people who owned other forms of farming, they diversified in order to kind of make themselves more profitable. When did you really start to see it becoming, I want to say top heavy? Is it when did you start seeing the transition really occurring, where farms were popping up left, right, and center, and the agricultural growth around the cannabis market was really starting to go? Because being based in Northern California, it is, like you said, it's not 5 hours from Humboldt. It is the hub of where majority of cannabis in the California area, if not the world, is grown. So it just kind of how was your experience of viewing that and blossoming? Does my question make sense? Yeah, it makes sense. Good.
Absolutely. I saw around late high school going into college is when I became aware of outdoor grows, indoor grows with LEDs, greenhouses, popping up all over the place because of the legalization that had just come through. It was the green rush that you guys have talked about, and you were either a business that was selling the picks and shovels, the Levi jeans, or you were there actually panning for gold or growing your own weed. Um, but to make the analogy, there is a lot of similarities in terms of business model, branding, and marketing of the wine industry and the cannabis industry. It's very similar in that in California, there's a lot of brands that are promoting their prestigious crop and why they're different and how their terpenes are different and why their strain is the best. It's how they grow. Again, this whole American term, vertically integrated business. But over there, it's, everything from the soil to the air to the humidity is all part of the brand ethos. And so those are very similar in the wine industry. And, you know, smokers of cannabis almost treat that vapor or that smoke and that flavor palette similar to a wine sommelier. And I've no doubt that there's a lot of similarities between the two. And so that kind of branding, marketing message from those businesses has really resonated with people because they've been used to that high quality in the wine industry as well. So it was people who want the best. It's grown in California. Of course, it's the best. Look at our weather. Look at our environment. This, like, where else would you want to grow? And that message has been kind of brought out and sent out via the dispensaries and via these wonderful carers that are in these dispensaries. It's the most incredible, I guess, American customer service I've ever seen, because it's almost like walking into a hospital in terms of them sitting down with you and asking, so
Could you
what are
walk
your
us?
ailments?
Could you walk us through that? Because that's so
Mm,
alien to where we are
mm.
at the
Yeah,
moment.
exactly.
That would be marvelous if you could.
It is phenomenal. So you kind of start the process right. I talked about medical earlier. And medical in the 90s kind of started with like actual, like, no, you have to go through the proper procedures to get your medical card and have a valid reason. That has since devolved into a place where, 10 years later, we're talking 2006, you could go down to Venice Beach, and for 30 quid, you go into a little hole in the wall and you can get your medical card very easily. So that was always a shoehorned in. But what I love about the whole dispensary vibe is that it is like walking into like a health and wellness center. You have your medical card, you go in, and to kind of describe the set and setting, there's usually like a security guard outside just for any particular reason. Usually it's because there's so much cash sitting on site because everything's cash. You walk in, there's usually a lovely hostess to greet you, and you sign in on an iPad, and it's usually, it's your entrance to the place. So it's tricked out with like usually a waterfall in the corner and lovely music. And it's meant to welcome you in, almost like you're about to go into a nightclub,
Or
Not
you're about to go
exactly.
into a spa.
It's not exactly Boots or Superdrug, is it? Blimey, I'm loving
It's
it.
so much
I'm
nicer.
loving it.
Yeah. So that's how you come into the space. You then hand in your medical card. They punch you in on the system. Now you're a patient of theirs. Usually wait for maybe 1 or 2 minutes. They don't like to have, more than 5 or 6 patients inside the dispensary at one given time. And then once you're ushered in, you go through either the beads or the door or however. And when you walk in, it's usually the most beautifully decorated, tranquil place. I'm thinking of a particular spot called Sespe Creek in Ojai in California. And they had lovely, lovely, call them health practitioners, but they're the people behind the desk. And a lot of the individuals that work at dispensaries are from the medical space, and they're around my age or older, but they've had a similar childhood upbringing where they've seen how cannabis helps their friends and family, and then they become a nurse, and then they're in that whole American healthcare system. And for whatever reason, they get disillusioned by that, or they'd like to move into the more holistic space. And now you're not just chatting to a spotty teenager behind the desk, you're actually speaking with an ex-head of surgery at a hospital from LA, they're your practitioner now. And so it's really from a place of care first. What are
It's
your
so
ailments? What are
patient
your
focused.
problems?
It's so patient
It's all patient
focused.
focused.
It's amazing.
And it's really to try and dial in on the psychosomatic of it, the mind and body. If you're having anxiety, are you feeling that in your body? If you have arthritis, how is that affecting you mentally? So it's the yin and yang. And they will recommend either, a vape, an edible, or flower, for lack of a better term. And they don't necessarily want to give you the highest dose, right? It's just like everything. Start low and go slow with your dosages. And they really want to ensure that you feel the best outcome from this product. And if it's an edible, that might be good for someone with bad lungs, but that has a different effect on the body. Or if someone needs an acute, I guess, fix right now and they'd rather vape, then that will be the right diagnosis. Again, you're coupling the form factor with the myriad of different cannabis strains in California, each one with its own benefit, each one with its own psychoactive effect, and I guess pain alleviation. And that's really kind of potentially at the heart of the issue, is that because you have people from the medical space in this lovely spot and you're the patient and you're always spoken to as the patient, pain alleviation for a certain demographic is at the heart of the issue, and it's not shied away from. Unlike here in the UK, where we can't make certain medical claims, we can't say this, can't say that. Over there, it's not like it's lawless or make all the claims in the world, but it is driven by a different kind of clinical study, which is the populace, which is reviews, which is people talking about their stories. So I hope that kind of answers your question a
No,
little
it
bit.
does. It does, but if anything, it actually leads perfectly on, because it didn't answer that question, but it did answer exactly what I needed you to hear. Sorry, it answered exactly what I wanted everyone to hear, because it was a depiction of the American market, which is very important, especially the Californian market. It's so advanced and it's so patient focused. It's so exactly what the cannabis market needs to be, but it's also not what exists everywhere in America. There is still, like I said last week on the show, there are 15, 20 states in America where this does not happen, where they are theoretically further behind us in the UK, where cannabis is still demonized and cannabis is still, a terrible thing. But fact of the matter is, it's amazing that that exists in California. So coming from California, where everything was rosy and the system was bright, patients getting what they need, and you came to the UK, what did you think of the UK market? It's basically what you're about to start answering anyway. I just thought it's like it segments on really well, because, coming with those rose-tinted glasses from California, you must have arrived and been like, what the, what's going on here?
Sure. Yeah. I say it to my clients sometimes. It's like, I kind of feel a bit like Marty McFly. It's like I've gone back in time a little bit. But there is a huge opportunity here. And everybody here in the UK has heard about the California cannabis market that's in the CBD market over here. And it feels like a lot of people know where it's headed. I'm one of them. I hope that there's dispensaries here in London and across the UK, but it still remains to be seen. My feeling of the UK market over here, it is predominant. I mean, if we're talking about cannabis overall, THC, Delta 8, CBN, all those banned cannabinoids, I mean, it is predominantly black market, and it is thriving. And let's not beat around the bush. The UK is one of the largest growers, extractors, and exporters of cannabis in the entire world. It's incredible. And yet that domestic crop that's grown here isn't consumed here, isn't part of the GDP here. It's exported to Canada, to Colombia, to
So he's talking about
countries.
GW Pharmaceuticals here, right?
They're one of the bigger ones. Yes, absolutely.
But then also, you are right about the black market. The black market in the UK is flourishing, and I mean, there is copious amounts of cannabis available in the UK market. It's actually insane. But the black market is dying. The legal market, one of the biggest problems is, I had a conversation with a buddy of mine, okay, so this is someone who I speak to regularly, and he's still completely unaware that legal medical cannabis even exists in the UK. I was explaining to him, he was like, I've got Crohn's. I was like, cool, you could go and get a prescription for that. He was like, well, you don't need to like medicate in fear anymore. He was like, what do you mean? I was like, you can go and get a legal cannabis prescription for that. You're not going to get the best weed in the world, but you'll be able to have a piece of paper which says you can legally consume cannabis, and you will never get arrested for being a stoner ever again. How many medicines have you had? He said, I've had 2. I was like, brilliant. You could definitely do it. I can literally get your consultation tomorrow. It will cost you 300 quid. And in about a week and a half time, you'll get your first prescription. It will cost you less than your street weed. Won't be as good, but it will cost you less than your street weed. He was like, I had no idea. And he was a little bit like, what's the catch? I think that's his exact words. I was like, what's the catch? I was like, what do you mean? He goes, well, like, obviously, if a policeman arrests me, I'll still get in trouble. I was like, no, that's the whole point. It's legal. And that's what I'm trying to get through to you.
Piece of paper.
You know, like, legal cannabis exists here. Nothing's really being done. And we have this ongoing conversation week in and week out. For some reason, for the last 60 weeks, the number of 5,000 patients seems to be the continuous. So it's almost like the last year and a half. It's almost like they talk about 5,000 patients. We had someone at the beginning of our series. He mentioned 5,000 patients. Someone recently mentioned 5,000 patients, and I'm sitting there thinking nothing's happening. It should have gone from 5,000 to 50,000. It's a year. We've had 365 days. It should have at
least doubled.
Yeah,
let's leave it at a modest
that's
guess.
one thing which keeps on getting me. I was like, all right, it hasn't gone up. It's been 62 weeks.
But it will.
I know.
But it
eventually will.
It'll just explode. I was just going to say one thing, because I picked it up from previous shows. Although you've advised Ollie, your chum, to get a thing and he won't be stopped by the police, and I'm not knocking them, they've got enough to do, are not up to speed, no pun intended, with the fact that you can wave a piece of paper at them and then they think, well, this is all hokey. This stinks. It's not right.
As well as the lawmakers, which is mental. I'm pretty sure in America, when they legalized or medicinalized cannabis, I'm pretty sure everyone knew that cannabis had been medicinalized. I'm sure the policemen knew that that medicinal cannabis existed. We live in the UK where medicinal cannabis is legal. It is a legal thing. No one has any idea. And it's almost like we scream about this every week. People scream about it, and no one has any idea. And it's almost like I've told the same police officer 3 times that legal cannabis exists out there. A buddy of mine is a police officer. I've told him 3 times. And every time I tell him, he looks at me like, shut up. And every time I tell him, he's like, oh, yeah, he's just pulling my leg. He's just pulling my leg. He's having me on. It's mental. And I'm saying, at least that's one thing America's done right. As in, like, you know, the laws are the laws, as opposed to in the UK where the law is not the law. The law is that cannabis is legal, but in reality, it's completely not. In America, the law was that cannabis was illegal, and it actually is illegal. Or the law is that cannabis is legal, and it's legal. So I kind of like the fact that Americans do follow laws. I think that's kind of important. You know, that's what they're there for. They give a bit of structure to life. But yeah, so listen. So coming into the UK CBD market specifically, because that's the area in which we work. That's where we've worked for the last 5 years. Like, what do you think about like the increased competition? Because that's one thing which I think we have in similarity with California right now. Is we have this obscene amount of competition and an obscene amount of brands trying to get out there, trying to get some sort of market coverage, trying to develop a following of loyal customers. And I personally think there's way too many, but I mean, it's almost like an oversaturated space, and California, unfortunately, now is an extremely oversaturated space. Like over the last 5 years, we've got 20 minutes left, we might as well talk about this. So over your last 5 years working in CBD, coming away from that California-based upbringing of yours, working and living in the UK, how have you found your experience with the UK CBD market?
Yeah, the UK CBD market.
Except for having the best boss in the world, you know, who you love, absolute banter. No, but seriously, apart from that, and working at the greatest company.
That was just nauseating, Edward.
I know, cringing,
sorry.
Right? A little bit cringing.
Plug.
Except for that, a little plug. If you want to work,
you know you're going to have to put on some CBD balm tonight because you've sprained your shoulder. You know that, Ollie? You sprained your shoulder. What? Yeah, clapping yourself on the back.
Oh, yeah, fine.
Yeah. Shameless self-plug.
Trying to put myself on mute. Yeah, put me on mute, Ross. I'll just sit back. I'll go silent corner.
I would say, and Ollie, you've kind of validated this recently on your trip to the States. The UK CBD market, in just aspects of CBD, far surpasses the States. In the States, CBD is like vitamin C. Like it's great. What else you got? It's so commonplace. Where it's more nuanced is in the THC, delta 8, CBG, CBC, CBN, like all these different compounds together. But just looking at CBD in the States, it's like it's everywhere, and it's another ingredient in your smoothie. What I love about the UK is that even it's almost like all creativity comes when you have certain constraints, and we're constrained to only using, CBD, CBG, CBC. But from that, Ollie, our team at Taylor Mammon, and many other manufacturers in the UK have taken that and been like, right, okay, this is what we got, boys. Let's add this specific terpene profile. Let's add black pepper extract. Let's do something with this flavoring that enhances the terpene profile of this part of this particular strain. We're getting really creative with certain aspects of CBD to the point where now we've pushed CBD into the FMCG space and health and wellness by sheer force of inventiveness, and to almost usher in CBD and make it just like any other ingredient by innovating. If you have CBD by itself, it's almost taboo, but when it's there with a rosemary extract or L-theanine or these other ingredients that people are more interested in,
I'm so sorry. What was the last one you said? I'd never heard that word before.
L-theanine. L-theanine, yeah, it's a cognitive enhancement. It's lovely to have as a way to combat, anxiety. Doesn't give you jitters if you have too much coffee. It's like a mood stabilizer throughout the day.
Okay.
So most people know L-theanine because it's present in like matcha green tea. So like matcha green tea has a very high concentration of L-theanine. It's why a lot of people are choosing to drink matcha over coffee. L-theanine, like Edward just says, like reduces the stimulus effect of caffeine. I think that's the best way of saying it. The nervous stimulus effect of caffeine. There we go. So it makes it more of a rounded, more of a polished uplift as opposed to being rushy. So L-theanine is a big one right now. People use it for like people use it to calm down as well, because without it, people use it to like help with sleep and to help with
stress reliever. Exactly.
There we go. It's an adaptogen, so it's actually a nootropic, but yeah, it's or nutraceutical. It's one of them.
So I'm very proud of the UK industry and like what we've done to push this molecule, to push this ingredient into the public space. And like you were saying, Ollie, just like California or Colorado or the bigger states that have legalized, there is an entrepreneurial mindset that comes in after that, and there's an opportunity, right? So you've seen that, I've seen that. There's been thousands of brands that have been like, okay, great. I kind of, tried
to take over the world of CBD.
Yeah, let's try it, and it does. I think cannabis does have a entrepreneurial mindset associated with it. Either via, if you're going to move into cannabis, you've got to pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of mentality to do it yourself. So I think that's why we've seen more businesses start as a CBD brand. Is just that kind of arena or that stage is perfect for someone to very quickly, create a website, get an Instagram, get 4 or 5 products, and go and find your target demographic. You don't really see that in the bigger, or in the VIT-C companies. Yeah, I'm going to start an omega-3 company. Like nobody, it doesn't really happen. It happens in the cannabis space, but and the manufacturers in the vitamin world, they have much larger MOQs. They have bigger demands, bigger onboarding process. Some gummy manufacturers start at 1 million units. They don't get out of bed for anything less than 1 million units. So it's like,
1 million units is it'll end up being like 50,000 bags. You could get like 20 units a pack. 20 units a pack. It'd be like 50,000 packs. It's not that much for us. You could buy it. You could buy it.
Yeah, obviously I could, but I'm talking about ordinary. I'm talking about normal people.
Yeah, a couple of weeks worth of gummies.
Now, right, Edward, can I ask you this? And Ollie, I bet with his way will know where I'm going to go with this. I've always thought that the major change will come when, through sheer, let's rephrase it, when people see the revenue streams opportunities. A lot of it is in the hands of people. They're not paying tax. They're, it shouldn't be happening like that. Some of it, I'm not saying all of it, obviously.
The black market. Let's just say the
But
black
they call
market.
the kind of the shady area, the sketchy area, right? You've already said, and I found it absolutely fascinating because I didn't know, despite 62 weeks of education through Ollie, that the UK is this, huge growing area, because whenever we've talked to any farmers, Ollie and I, that they got something like my window box. It's all a bit.
Hold on. You did hear about GW Pharmaceuticals. We talked about the 6.9
No.
billion
I know
dollar
that.
company.
I know that. I'm talking about sort of individual things. When a government of any color, persuasion, whatever you want, it's not a political point, suddenly thinks, wait a minute, we're exporting this stuff. We're not. There's no tax. This is crazy. We could be making an absolute fortune.
Mm-hmm. I think
How do you feel about that when all that sort of lost revenue? Would that push it along?
Well, it's twofold, right? I've been talking about the cannabis market in California that was ushered in by well-to-do people that were very inviting of new fads, if you want to call them that. And then I talk about the UK and how we've innovated and pushed this product through. And eventually it will be legalized here across the board. THC, Delta 8, all molecules. I don't know when, but what will usher that in is the tax revenue. It's what happened in California. It's what happened in Colorado.
There you go.
And the 38 other
Thank
states.
you.
We can push the business, the industry, the market at a very rapid rate, but that will innovate on behalf of our customers. Where the systemic change happens is, of course, by the MPs. And when someone finally proposes that there can be 1 to 2 billion of extra taxable revenue to Her Majesty's government, then after COVID, after Brexit, after all of these, taxable events, if you want to call them taxable events, then it becomes more lucrative, for lack of a better term, for the UK government to get involved and just legalize it. Because
see, Edward, in my non-expert opinion, this would be soon would be a good time, because the easiest way to sell this in to the public and appease the Daily Mail, let's be honest, would be, we can now save the NHS, and this is how we're going to do it. Suddenly we've got this revenue. I know it's cheesy, but trust me, that would be an absolute winner chicken dinner. Because they suddenly said, we've got billions, and now we can give it all back to you and give you great health service.
The issue is right now with this, but the issue is with this for us, is with so many countries around the world embracing and engaging with cannabis, and with so many new countries joining this green rush across Europe, South America, Asia, Africa, and the Caribbean, Britain theoretically already let itself fall behind, and it's ignoring something which is vital for the future. So, like, whether it's a top-down effort, so the government owns it and it's a top-down effort, or it's an easing of restrictions enabling a bottom-up growth, either way, something has to happen. But right now, we're stopping our acceleration, and other countries are zooming past us. So even if we were to, pull up our bootstraps and legalize tomorrow, I mean, what can we offer the world that the world can't already offer itself? You've got Germany, which is literally about to take over Europe. German efficiency is about to rule again. All right, it's going to be mental. You've got Italy, which have basically decriminalized in a very controlled way, but they've decriminalized. You've got like so many countries around the world which legalized 4 or 5 years ago, but have actually put some effort behind their structure. And we're still sitting in the UK, jumping through this novel.
And of course, don't forget, Ollie, we have a great history of this. When we invented the jet engine, just handed it over to the Americans. No offense, Edward, don't go. But it's true.
We'll take it.
But we had all that. We had.
I'm saying that there's so many issues, and I'm kind of sitting here. It's like, England will turn around and legalize, but the problem is when we do legalize, are we not already so far behind? And that's where I'm kind of at right now. I'm starting to see us as almost like we have fallen so far behind. It's ridiculous, actually. It's a joke. We have third world countries who have more powerful cannabis economies than us. I mean, it's mental. And we buy from these third world economies. That's where we buy from. And we pay extortionate prices. And then we sell it to our patients in the UK for extortionate prices. It's mental. And that's my biggest fear. My biggest fear is that we're just, of course, England will look around the world and see that everyone's made billions of dollars and think, hey, let's jump on the bandwagon. Yeah. But the bandwagon's gone. The train's left the station and you are there holding your ticket.
You know what? You'll be the following. The best you can do in that case is you have to be the following train and there'll still be passengers. That's the only way I can, look at it. You won't be in the vanguard of it, but you'll be better off than where we are now. It won't be the best it could be because it needs people like not me. I wouldn't know what to do. But you two are visionaries, and your colleagues are visionaries, and you get this. Had you been leading this, okay, we'd have been leading the world. But there we are.
Now
it's almost like do it for yourselves. Yeah, it's like do it for the people here who don't want to travel to those other countries to try and get their medicine. That's another big issue. It's really, tax it here, have a domesticated, regulated system that allows for a new taxable channel inside of the UK. Yes. And it's not even a new idea. This idea has been, validated. The concept has been proven across 40 different states and a multiple of, different countries, Canada, South America,
Israel.
Exactly. It's not an earth-shaking idea. It's
Australia,
just that could work out over
legalized.
Here. Yeah, Thailand.
Well, what is interesting, because that completely negates the argument that you're going to turn your population into swivel-eyed zombies and everyone's just going to be stoned off their faces. There's already a lot of empirical evidence out there saying, well, that's just a silly old argument. I mean, it's silly and it's old argument. It doesn't hold water anymore.
That holds no water. It holds no water. So I've got a question for you. I have to shorten it, but there's only 8 minutes left. I know you could talk about this for hours. So in the UK, we've had this whole novel food issue. Okay. Yes. Now, coming from America, where the system just grew, it didn't have restrictions. It didn't have the hurdles which have been put in front of the hurdles which have been put in front of the CBD market alone in the UK have not been put in front of the greater cannabis market in America. All right. Now, with hurdles like novel food popping up out of nowhere and seriously causing some issues in the CBD market in the UK, do you not think potentially the government has an anti-cannabis from an outside perspective? Can you not see maybe the government having, like, I know them saying that they want to legalize, but can you not see them having almost an antithesis mentality of what they actually say they have?
Yeah, actions speak louder than words, right? So novel foods, I mean, of course, this industry...
Feel free to rip it to shreds, by the way. I know you poor boy. You poor boy.
No, I have many thoughts on this. Overall, regulation is a wonderful thing, right? It stops people making CBD products in their bathtub. I mean, that's what you want to get rid of. It is, to liken it to America, it's a step ahead because this regulation is happening at the US equivalent of the federal level, and the federal government and the state simply just has no interest in legalizing it yet. So here in the UK, it's nice to see, even as backwards as the implementation of novel foods has been, at least there's some progression happening. And that's me giving my, almost like politician's answer. I mean, the regulation is great. We need it. The industry was crying out for it. It had to happen. However, the methods in which it has materialized into reality is far different to, I guess, what was the hopes and dreams of how novel foods was going to be ushered in. And I guess what I mean by that is Ollie and I are kind of at the front of the coalface of managing brands and how these regulations are affecting them. And these are brands that work with us that are taking this novel molecule, CBD, and using it in their products. And we, via GenCanna, have all of the documentation in the world, from seed to growth to extract technology, to show the efficacy of this novel molecule. And we've had to supply an incredible amount of data to the FSA, which is what we expected. I guess what I haven't expected is the lack of communication from their side. It has been a one-way channel of communication. And it's been, honestly, crickets on their side. I don't wish to speak ill of the FSA or anything like that.
I think one of the biggest
issues,
issues is they're a very undersubscribed government organization, and the energy which the UK government has put behind this small cannabis-focused food safety, food standard agency department is, if that shows anything, they've given 2 employees for over 1,500 applications. And the idea is, so it's this whole idea of government support and government efforts behind pushing something forward is so much less than what it should be. And, you know, as a, like, I don't think it's fair for the patients, but I mean, for coming from America, where, coming from California, where things just rolled out, I mean, it's a little bit, it's like a standoff, you know what I mean? It's like a, like you know, like an old Western standoff.
Yeah, absolutely. It's frustrating, but I understand that there needs to be regulations that come in. Let's just look at the numbers, right? That's kind of where most of the story is written, is follow the money. There's been millions pumped into the government in terms of rates, fees, in terms of like paying them to look at the dossiers.
So, hold on, let's give Russ the math. It works out about 25 grand to submit a dossier for a brand, right?
Good God.
Yeah, around 25 grand to submit a novel food dossier. They've got 1,500 brands. So that works out to what, 37.5 million, right?
There's
37.5 million. I'm pretty sure that's right. 37.5 million pounds kind of has been put in, and
to
2 members
ballpark
of
it. Yeah, to ballpark it and look at the industry overall. And they've allocated 2-3 people to looking at these dossiers, and that's what I'm. So that is what
I was really hoping, Edward, you weren't going to say that, because as a Brit, you coming from California, I'm embarrassed. It's costing 25,000 quid per dossier. There's 3 people. Come on.
Yeah, and so you wonder why
you've got thousands of people at it.
I was right. It's 37.5 million. I was like, Ollie, your math is off. There's no way in hell they've taken 37.5 million. I've literally just done it. I was like, all right, it's 37.5 million. I was like, that's mental. 40 million pounds from
what
small
they've
companies.
done is they've rinsed you, boys.
They have
rinsed you, boys.
I would actually have to say it's borderline Me Too. That's literally what it is. This is like another Me Too movement about to start. Just throwing it out there.
All right. Well, an interesting way of putting it. Not quite what I would term it, but I mean, really.
37.5 million, Russ. 37.5 million. All right, is Me Too. Okay.
I got it. You have stunned me, the pair of you. Every week, Edward, something comes up and I go, how come I never
something new.
And that is staggering.
But that's the UK is so far behind, you know, like.
Well, if you've got 3 people, you know, taking a tea break, it's going to take forever.
They're not interested in getting back to us. Yeah, so it's frustrating, and it's frustrating for many brands, and it's frustrating for companies who want to know if they're going to be on the dossier and approved.
Can I ask a very leading, quick question? This is not meant to be rude at all. Do they understand? It's a serious point. What's in the dossier? Ollie's shaking his head.
They're looking at an overwhelming amount of data. Receipts,
precisely. You know,
they don't understand what's the right or wrong direction to turn. And to be honest with you, if I was them, neither would I. I wouldn't know. Like, it's so overwhelming. It's the most overwhelming thing. And it just shows how far behind we are.
They need to get some. Then what they need to do is, with respect, get somebody like Edward, somebody like Ollie Mammon, and seriously, and
yeah,
then
hire Taylor Mammon to sort out novel food. I only want 5%. Okay,
Happily
you give me
do it.
you give me 1.8 million. I'll sort out all your problems.
Not the world's most stupid idea, Edward. You have graced us with your presence, graced us with your loquaciousness, your articulate argument. It's been fantastic. Ollie, always an absolute
Thank you so much.
to see you. No, thanks to you. Thank you very, very much.
Hell yeah.
My pleasure. Thank you,
We
gentlemen.
will be back same time next week, 6 o'clock on a Thursday, live and uncensored. Until then, try and stay out of trouble, will you please?